Good morning, guys. Today I'm gonna talk to you about how to write literature in the IMRAD format. So technically, this is a guide on what are the things that you need to consider for literature review, right? So just like what I've mentioned before, writing a literature review is just getting into a glimpse as to what is your research about, and also in the context of a certain flow or organizational thoughts, no, or ideas. So in this case, the style is going to be writing the literature review based on the statements of your problem or your research objectives. Okay, so this is the most organized way of writing your literature review in the IMRAD format, and giving you a little bit of ease, no, in terms of doing your writing for literature review. Because in many instances, the reason why it's very difficult, basically, uh, to write literature review is that you have many references of which type or style of writing is more appropriate in terms of writing the literature review. So this is going to be very easy. Now, for this session, we're going to use the research on women's mental health economy, coping and responding during pandemic. Okay, so you have two variables in this research. You have the mental health and economy. So in these two variables, there are two expected other variables, no? So from mental health economy, we are expecting what are the things that they are coping and how do they respond, to this type of adversities, mental health and economies, no? So let's go. So based on the research question or statements of the problem, the following are the statements. So the first one is, what are the mental health adversities of women during pandemic? What are the women's coping mechanism and response from their mental health adversities? So number three is there a significant difference to their coping mechanism and response? So if you notice, they separated the variables, no? Mental health is separated from the economic aspect of the research. So for mental health, they are leading towards discussing mental health adversities as well as the coping mechanism and response, no? Of course, they're coming from the respondents, no? So in the next three questions, they have, what is the impact of COVID-19 to women's economic activities? The number five, what are the women's response from the impact of COVID-19 to their economic activities? Then, what's the next one? What are the programs that they initiated for women's mental health and economy during the crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic? So this is a sort of response as well, no? So in this research, I think what is very clear is that for the mental health aspect, they are trying to get the coping mechanism and response, no? But in terms of economy, they want to get only the response, no? After getting the things about the economic effects to the respondents. Okay? So these questions is supposed to manifest in your literature review. So you're going to talk about it in the literature review. And when you say you're going to talk about it in your literature review, you're going to find out some studies that were previously done and some findings that have been taken from the research undertakings of other authors or other researches. Or in some instances, these are also findings coming from, different organizations and websites, no? Sometimes you might be confused, no? You cannot find authors doing certain aspects of your research, no, or the things that you to be placed in your literature review. But that's because there are some findings that are institutional or organizational in nature, and sometimes they don't place the author, no, but instead it's credited to the organization or to the institution. So, and that's okay. So what's important is that there are proper citations and proper reference practices for the authors or organizations that have done it. And mind you guys, it's very important also to consider that in the literature review, you only place references, no, and citation materials on reputable, coming from reputable authors and reputable organizations or institutions. Okay, it's not like you just search it in Google, and just when you find similar materials for your literature, then you right away get it and place it in your literature. Most uh, reputable way also of doing literature review is basically getting materials from reputable websites. No, so you have websites for journals. There are websites for different researches. There are different websites which features a lot of research findings already now online. It's definitely very accessible. Although to some extent these are you need to have premium access, like you pay it for some amounts in order to get more information, but generally these things are already free, no, for free. Okay, let's go. So for this example, we're still using about the women's mental health and economy research, no. Okay, so you see here, so for IMRAD, you basically have a one-pager literature that you can use, no, for presentation, because international, especially those which are reputable, uh, they will not be publishing like over 100 pages of your research, but rather they will only select what are substantially reported in your research. So that's why they want your literature review to be one pager, no, at most, no. So let's see. Okay. So in the first two paragraphs, first two or three paragraphs, you can have an introduction, the general introduction of mental health and economy. No, so you may be having resources, or I mean reference resources coming from very reputable agencies already, and some people or researchers findings, no, with related which are related to your research. And of course guys, it's very very important to have references or findings or studies that are very very recent, no? Because as far as we know, the more recent it is, uh, it debunks previous studies, no? So it is assumed that it debunks previous studies. Although there are some instances wherein there are foundational resources or information that have not been debunked. So it's okay to use that. But generally, you're supposed to get the latest because it's supposed to have latest findings, no, recent studies. So the parts that we are looking right now, look at this, no? So in the first paragraph, you talk about unemployment. Yeah, the impacts specifically on teams on economy, no, uh, and the third paragraph is suggests the women and girls may be affected in different ways. Of course, research about women, so you are expected to really delineate the effect, no, women from men. Okay, then it goes on. I'm not sure if this is the sixth paragraph. You talk about the mental health already. No. So notice the different ways of how to cite. This is World Bank 2020. Cite different authors. Yeah, you can place them at the end, or you can place them in the beginning. No, usually here's an agency report 2020 PSA Philippine Statistics Office. It's already in the acronym form because it was mentioned already in the previous document, so maybe in the introduction. So you can have an acronym for it. So the same thing with ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics. Oh, I just forgot the year. I'm not sure which year is this. But you have here World Bank. This is World Bank, WB. Okay, so based on the statement of the problems, you have here, it's supposed to tackle about the mental health. No? So you have adversities on worries and apprehension. It's about mental health already. Then coping mechanism, uh, it depends on what you can find out in the literature resources or websites. It depends, no? The closest that you can get to your research, of course, that's the better. But of course, just a disclaimer, because pandemic is the first time in the world, and it's kind of hard to find literature because, of course, recent study have been activated on the time that the pandemic is happening. So it's just like over. So we really expect lesser literature on it. No? Then you have a response. No, you have coping mechanism. Then you have response. See, it's very organized. What I also advise you to do is italicize your subtopic so that you won't be confused. No, in IMRAD, they are not a fan of highlighting this or having this in boldface. No, so you just italicize it. Okay, very much organized, just like the way it flows in the statements of the problem. So you have health compliance response, responsiveness and active campaigning, right? Then of course the second theme or the second variable in the study is about economic adversities, no? Okay, so you can thoroughly discuss it already, economic on the economy, right? Of course, in terms of economy, you're expected to have literature response. But if I'm not mistaken, there is no response here because I think, or just little literature about response, because, yeah, just like what I've mentioned, there are few literatures already. There are only a few literature reputable enough to be included in the response aspect of economy, but we should be placing that, no, in the literature review. So sometimes the response, some of the aspects of the theme are implicitly discussed, no. Yeah. So even if there is no response, you can talk about the wage and educational gaps. These are themes related to response anyway, no? Okay, so that's as easy as that. That's literature, no? So in the last paragraph, make sure to have a resource on literature review addressing your title, no? Your title. They always do. Yeah. So if you would notice, your literature review is just like your introduction, no? The flow, because they are guided by your statements of the problem. Another form of guide, by the way, for writing literature review is basically your conceptual framework. No? Yeah, but for me, in my own style, I use uh, I use the statements of the problem. Wherein the statements of the problem may come from your instrument or from your title. No? So they're just the same. I mean, these are things that guide you in writing your literature. So you would be surprised because it's the same guide that you will use for uh, methods. No, so everything is connected. That's research. Research is basically a form of writing based on the organization of ideas because you want things clear. Okay, that ends our discussion for literature review. If you have questions, you can message me through the messenger or your group messenger or our group chat. So thank you very much for listening.